Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different, actually. It's a really unique journey, one that's both, well, intimate and pretty unsettling. Instead of our usual broad topic, we're focusing in doing a custom-tailored exploration into the intricate, often dark story of just one person's life. We're drawing from some deeply personal and, frankly, disturbing source material today. We've got excerpts from the novel Dweller by Jeff Strand, and this book, it gives such a raw, unfiltered look at a man whose whole life becomes, well, tangled up with this profound, lifelong secret. It's a story that really makes you think about loyalty, fear, and what it actually means to define a relationship, especially one that's, well, unconventional.
Exactly. And that's really our mission today, isn't it? We're going to try and unpack the immense psychological toll of keeping something like that hidden and how the nature of, an unconventional relationship can shift and change over decades. And also just how seemingly small, isolated events can kind of weave together to shape an entire destiny. As we get into Toby Floren's life, we'll keep bumping up against that really complex and, uncomfortable question, who or what is actually the monster here?
All right, let's dive right in then because this story grabs you from like the very first page. We start in 1946 with this incredibly chilling prologue. So picture this. Two couples out camping deep in the woods. They only brought one rifle thinking maybe bears, right? They never expected what they actually found. Suddenly they're ambushed by these creatures that are just terrifying. The book describes them with cartoonishly large and sharp teeth, long, sharp claws, and it's immediately clear these things intend to devour them. After one woman, Darla, is dragged off, the others, Phil, Mikey, Thomas, Nancy, they chase after them, only to get ambushed again. It's brutal. So brutal that Thomas has to mercy shoot Mikey before the rest manage to escape. A grim detail, but maybe what saves some of them, is these creatures couldn't climb trees. But what really gives you chills is this brief moment we get from the creature's perspective. It's the youngest one, watching its family get killed by what it calls food humans with sticks.
It's an incredible opening, isn't it? It just hits you immediately. What strikes me is how this violent start, it doesn't just establish that sort of primal fear, but it completely flips the usual monster script.
Yeah.
Humanity, right from the get-go, with their sticks, they're positioned as this devastating predator to these creatures. It sets up this ethical gray area that just runs through the whole narrative. If humans are capable of that kind of destruction, who really gets to be called the monster?
That's a really powerful point, yeah. And from that brutal beginning, we jump forward to 1953. Toby Floren is 8 years old now, still very much in that kid world, aliens, vampires, that kind of imagination. But then he finds something much more surprising and real in the woods behind his house. An actual monster, his first encounter. Terrifying. So much so he drops his prized pocket knife and runs. And the reaction at home is swift, harsh. A belt punishment from his dad, a week no dessert from his mom. And of course, absolutely forbidden from going back into the woods. It's kind of a classic setup for a troubled kid, isn't it? You've got this vivid imagination, this pull towards the unusual, and boom, it's immediately met with severe parental control, punishment. If you connect that to the bigger picture, it almost feels like Toby's early life is kind of conditioning him, teaching him the outside world is dangerous, discovery leads to pain, and maybe even pushing him towards finding solace or control in unconventional ways later on.
Absolutely. And that thread continues when we move to 1960. Toby's 15 now, and his life is just, well, it's miserable. High school is hell for him. He's relentlessly bullied. Guys like Larry Gage and Nick Weiler. There's this horrible incident where Nick Weiler actually pees in the toilet before dunking Toby's head in it. Larry's just physically intimidating. Toby's known as the weird kid, totally isolated, sits alone at lunch, this empty chair always separating him. He tries to fight back sometimes, like giving the finger to other bullies like JD, who he calls Zit Farm, but it's clear he's right at the bottom of the social ladder.
Yeah, that kind of constant, intense social torment, the humiliation, the isolation, it's like a crucible, right? It shapes you. It really raises a key question for Toby's development. How does that kind of deep loneliness and desperation affect a person's behavior? Does it make them more vulnerable, maybe, to finding connection in, well, really unconventional places, or maybe through desperate actions?
It certainly seems to push him back towards the woods. He goes there looking for some kind of solace, trying to do homework, actually. Math problems, an essay on Robinson Crusoe. And that's when he finds it. A wooden sign, partly hidden but readable. Danger, keep out. His imagination, of course, goes wild. Abandoned mines, horrible plagues, giant rats. But he keeps looking, finds this narrow path, looks recently used. He follows it uphill and discovers this man-made cave entrance. Rusted metal hinges still there, though the door's gone. Inside, the smell is just Awful, noxious. And then the monster emerges. Toby remembers it vividly. Thick brown hair, bare patches, limbs kind of twisted. Huge, curved, white claws, at least 3 inches long, yellow eyes set deep, and the jaws described as a complete horror show, with teeth that were almost cartoonishly large and sharp, just like the ones from 46. So this brings us to the really shocking, pivotal moment of this early period. After school one day, Larry and Nick confront Toby again. It escalates beyond verbal abuse. They pull out actual revolvers and point them at him. The guns just click. It's a prank, but just unbelievably cruel, gut-wrenching. And Toby, just overwhelmed by this surge of pure rage, helplessness, he retaliates. He pulls out the knife he'd started carrying for protection. And in that moment of desperation, he stabs Larry in the chest, Nick in the throat, kills them both.
And that right there, that's the instant everything changes, irrevocably. That horrifying realization hits him. I'm a killer. I'd murdered Larry and Nick. It wasn't even self-defense. What's so chilling, though, is his immediate next step. It's almost insane. Instead of confessing, running, he makes this desperate, awful decision. He decides to feed the bodies to Owen, the creature he just properly met, even using severed fingers as bait to lure him out. This act, just born of sheer terror and this frantic need to escape the consequences, it forever binds Toby to Owen. It becomes the ultimate secret, doesn't it? It defines the absolute core of his tormented life from that point forward.
It's truly grotesque, and yet, strangely, the immediate result of the murders is this weird twist for Toby at school. He gets this sort of found popularity at Orange Leaf High. It's bizarre, like his violence somehow impressed people. Meanwhile, he starts his first attempts at, bonding with Owen. He actually names the monster Owen after this half-friend he had who moved away, and he starts feeding him. Bologna at first, Owen pounces on it. Then pork chops, bone and all, an entire Granny Smith apple just gone in one bite. Finds out Owen doesn't like chocolate, but loves raw bacon. Toby even tries to communicate, like showing him a more please gesture, trying to teach him to stay.
It's such a fascinating psychological tightrope he's walking there, isn't it? He's in this completely unthinkable situation, and his mind just immediately starts to rationalize, to try and normalize the horror. Owen isn't just a convenient way to dispose of evidence anymore. He becomes this strange, almost domestic companion. He's found a confidant for his terrible secret, someone who literally consumes his guilt, and crucially, someone who won't judge him like any human would. It's like a twisted form of therapy, really, born out of pure desperation.
And he definitely needs that confidant because Detective Dorman quickly starts investigating the missing boys. Toby carefully makes up this story, claiming Larry and Nick just ran away to New York, even says Larry took 2 guns from his dad's collection, and amazingly, the cover-up actually holds. But even though he gets away with it externally, Toby's internal world is still a mess. He keeps trying to understand Owen, bond with him. He reads aloud from paperbacks sometimes, passages with, like, really violent stuff, an armored car plowing into hostages, things like that. He even combs Owen's matted hair, finds bugs in it. And all this time, his internal monologue is just raging. He's plagued by these constant hallucinations of Larry and Nick. And they mock him, they question his choices, especially this grotesque friendship he's forming with the monster.
Yeah, the hallucinations are such a powerful symbol there. They're not just a symptom. They really underscore the huge, ongoing psychological weight of his secret. Owen becomes more than just a companion. He's almost a physical manifestation of Toby's crushing guilt. A silent listener to this endless self-inflicted torment. It's this tragic cycle, isn't it? Self-punishment mixed with this desperate, very human need to have some kind of witness to his hidden life, even if that witness is the monster he's, in a way, created.
So Toby moves into adult life. He gets a job at the local grocery store working for a Mr. Zach. But his real ambition, or hope, is to become a cartoonist. He puts a lot of effort into it, sends out numerous comic strips, names like Rusty and Pug, Mom and Runts, even Toby and Owen. But he just faces rejection after rejection. There's even one mix-up where they send him the wrong rejection letter. Eventually, in 1984, he gets this tiny sliver of success, sells a single strip for $5 to a magazine called The Blender.
You know, this pursuit of cartooning, despite all the setbacks, it makes you wonder about the drive behind it. Is it just a genuine passion? Or is it also this desperate attempt to build some kind of normal life, to prove to himself maybe that he's still capable of something creative, something positive, something that could potentially mask the horrific reality he's living with every day? It's almost like another form of self-therapy, trying to find some meaning.
That's interesting. Then, in 1973, Toby meets Melissa Tomlinson. He's awkward, but he tries really hard with dating her. He quickly becomes intensely attracted to her, calls her his favorite human being. But of course, the secret causes huge problems. He has to lie constantly. Like, he fakes not wanting to smoke pot with her, makes up an excuse about his mom visiting. He's terrified he'll confess everything if he gets high. Later, he tries it alone and just ends up sobbing uncontrollably. And to explain Owen, he invents this whole story about a horribly disfigured friend who lives in a cabin out in the woods, result of some childhood accident.
This just perfectly highlights the profound isolation Toby's trapped in, doesn't it? He literally cannot connect fully, even with someone he seems to genuinely love, because the secret is always there, this impenetrable wall between them. It creates this constant underlying tension that just poisons his relationships. He's trapped by the very thing he thinks is his salvation, his bond with Owen, but it ruins any chance at normal human intimacy.
And the tragic end to this relationship comes in 1974. Despite all these internal warnings, his own fears, Toby makes the absolutely fateful decision to bring Melissa to meet Owen. During the meeting, something happens. Melissa trips. Owen reacts, maybe protectively at first, but it turns instantly violent, frenzied. Toby desperately tries to stop Owen. He even shoots Owen in the arm with a gun he brought. But it's no use. Owen's rage is unstoppable. Melissa suffers this gruesome death. Her arm is torn off, and the book says the next bite ended her screams. It's horrific.
Oh, the irony there is just gut-wrenching, isn't it? He tries to finally bridge that gap, share his secret world with Melissa by introducing her to his supposedly safe monster. And it leads directly to her horrific death. It really forces you to ask, was Owen's action purely predatory? Or was it some kind of misguided instinctual response to a perceived threat in his space? Does Owen even understand protection, or is it just brute instinct? This moment, maybe more than any other so far, just profoundly blurs that line of who or what is truly the monster in this story. It's a creature acting on instinct, sure, but an instinct totally perverted by its circumstances and by Toby's attempts to manage and control it.
Yeah, and the consequences just keep spreading. Detective Dorman, the same detective from the Larry and Nick case, years ago he leads the investigation into Melissa's disappearance. Toby, now much more practiced at lying, meticulously constructs his story. He even burns his bloody clothes to get rid of the evidence, and he manages to convince the authorities that Melissa either just ran away or maybe was killed by a wild animal. Dorman is clearly suspicious, you can tell, but he just doesn't have any solid evidence to pin it on Toby. So years pass. Toby actually gets married to a woman named Sarah. They have 2 children, a son, Garrett, and a daughter, Hannah. But Toby's internal conflict, it just keeps raging. Those hallucinations of Larry and Nick, they're still there. Then Sarah gets this opportunity, a chance to pursue songwriting in Chicago. She wants to move the family, but Toby absolutely refuses to leave Orange Leaf. His decision is completely driven by this overwhelming, desperate need to stay near Owen.
And that decision right there, it really exposes the depth of Owen's hold on Toby's life. It's gone beyond loyalty. It's become this pathological dependence that has him completely trapped. His commitment to Owen, or maybe just to keeping the secret safe, it totally outweighs his wife's happiness, her career. It just shows how profoundly his secret life and this deeply unconventional relationship have dictated the entire course of his existence.
It's chilling. And in 1995, Toby, who's now 50, makes this attempt that feels almost like a last resort. He tries to integrate Owen into his family life. Specifically, he tries to introduce his son, Garrett, to the monster. He takes these really elaborate safety precautions, buys heavy chains from a hardware store. The salesman tells him they could withstand a half-dozen elephants pulling on it at once. He fastens each chain to a different tree. But despite all this, Garrett's reaction is just pure, unadulterated terror. The boy gasps, clutches Toby's hand, just cries, "Daddy, I want to go home." And Toby keeps trying to justify it to himself and to his son, saying Owen wouldn't hurt them, insisting he's our friend.
Well, that scene is just heartbreaking. It perfectly encapsulates the core tragedy of Toby's entire life, doesn't it? This deep longing he has for normalcy, for full acceptance, even if it means trying to force this completely impossible reality onto his own child. This attempt to fold Owen into his domestic world, it backfires so dramatically. It just solidifies the absolute division his secret has created. It really highlights the huge gap between Toby's perception of Owen, this friend, this companion, and the terrifying reality that everyone else sees.
As Toby gets older, his health, both physical and mental, starts to decline noticeably. He hits 50, feels old, struggles more with alcohol, Those hallucinations of Larry and Nick seem to get worse. And the difficulty of juggling his family life, what's left of it, with visiting Owen, leads to this intense, crushing guilt. And this decline leads to another really disturbing act of violence in 2005. Toby encounters this drunken man described as hippie who somehow knows the local monster story and actually threatens to tell the world about it. So Toby lures him out towards Owen's cave. He holds the man down, slams his face into the dirt, twists his arm until something snaps, and essentially feeds him to the monster.
Okay, this murder stands in really stark contrast to the first two, doesn't it? Toby's older now, he's more desperate, and the act feels far more deliberate, more calculated, less panic, more execution. It marks this really chilling evolution in his character. He's gone from being an accidental killer driven by panic and fear to becoming a calculating murderer, completely willing to sacrifice another human being just to protect his secret and his strange codependent bond with Owen. The monster has, in a way, become an extension of Toby's own darkest impulses now. Or maybe Toby's become the monster's facilitator.
Yeah, it's grim. Despite all this personal darkness, Toby actually has a brief moment of online success with his comic strip, Rusty and Pug. In 2007, it's apparently getting 700 hits a day, becomes the third highest rated strip on this website he's using. He even draws it while he's out spending time with Owen. But like everything else, it doesn't last. He eventually loses his grocery store job because he's just unreliable. And then the comics website shuts down in 2009. And the painful reality of his family life becomes unavoidable. Sarah eventually forbids him from having any contact with their children. His phone calls with them become increasingly rare, really strained. Toby also starts having his own health problems, tumors that need to be surgically removed. Then the inevitable, devastating climax arrives in 2010. Garrett, his son, now 22 years old, comes back to Orange Leaf. Toby's overjoyed. He sees this as a chance, maybe a final chance, to reconnect, to show Garrett something. He decides to take Garrett to meet Owen again, but it ends in tragedy. Again, Owen attacks Garrett viciously, tears off a particularly meaty strip of his flesh, the book says. Toby reacts in absolute horror this time. He's desperate, tries to call for help on his cell phone, but finds no reception out in the forest. Garrett dies right there, in his arms.
This is just the ultimate agonizing betrayal for Toby, isn't it? The creature he protected for decades, the secret he built his entire broken life around, ultimately destroys the very last connection he had to his normal family life, his own son. It raises such a heartbreaking question. Was Owen's attack on Garrett just an act of pure monstrosity? Or was it, again, some kind of creature's instinctual reaction? A reaction to perceived danger, maybe, or territory, after all those years of being kept, confined, hidden away? Is Owen acting on his own nature, or is he just a product of the impossible, twisted life Toby forced upon him? The lines are just so deeply, tragically blurred at this point.
The horror doesn't stop there. After Garrett's death, Owen seems to go on a rampage. He goes back to Toby's house and kills a woman who's there, leaves her body just dismembered, insides exposed, not even eaten, just killed, pure violence. Toby, despite his own grief and probably injuries, he frantically hunts Owen down. The final confrontation happens at this local ice cream shop, the one that's distinctively shaped like a giant ice cream cone. Toby's plan now is clear. He has to kill Owen. And then, in these incredibly poignant final moments, the police arrive, drawn by the commotion. Owen, instead of running or attacking the officers, he actually pushes past Toby, seemingly to shield him from the police gunfire. Both Toby and Owen are shot in the ensuing chaos, and they die there, together.
Wow. It's such an incredibly complex and ultimately tragic ending, isn't it? Wow. Reflecting on Toby's whole journey. You see this arc from a bullied kid finding this strange solace in a monstrous friendship to this broken old man whose life completely unravels under the immense weight of his secrets and just the devastating, violent consequences of all his choices. But even in death, that bizarre codependent bond, it just persists right up until their very last breaths together. It's quite something.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, Toby's life, this whole story, it gives us these really profound insights into, well, the true complexity of human connection.
Yeah.
And those incredibly blurred lines between being a protector and being a monster, or maybe creating one, and how our deepest, most basic desires, for connection, for safety, for protection, even for normalcy, how they can lead to just unimaginable and destructive outcomes. It really forces you to question who the real dweller is in this story. Is it the creature hiding in the cave, or is it the man trapped by his own actions, his own secrets? His own monstrous choices.
It's a chilling reminder, really, that even the most desperate apps can forge bonds, sure, but those bonds, if they're rooted in such dark foundations, built on secrets and violence, they can ultimately devour everything you hold dear. It leaves you wondering about the nature of loyalty when it's built on something so horrific.
Indeed. It leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener. In a world where maybe monsters are real and secrets can be deadly, what lines would you cross to protect what you hold dear? And maybe more importantly, at what cost would you define friendship?